Hello there. In just a moment, the press preview as we take a look at the morning newspapers. First, though, our top stories this evening. And the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, says he is strongly opposed to Donald Trump addressing Parliament during a forthcoming state visit. A US court will hear legal arguments tomorrow on whether to restore the president's travel ban after a fresh appeal from the Trump administration in the last half hour. The Prime Minister has warned MPs not to obstruct the will of the British people over Brexit as they debate the bill which will trigger the process of the UK's withdrawal from the EU. More votes expected around midnight tonight. Hello there, you're watching Sky News and the press preview. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with these two, the Daily Mail's consultant editor, Andrew Pearce. Did that get your attention? And the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, because something needs to. There we are. Front pages. Should we take a look at those to start with? The Telegraph, leading with John Bercow's opposition to Donald Trump, speaking in Parliament, saying he's been accused of damaging the special relationship. Guardian also going with that, saying he'll use his authority to prevent the president from addressing MPs. The i2 suggesting that Speaker Bercow has received backing from MPs despite government criticism. The Daily Mirror also with that headline, racist Trump banned from speaking in Parliament. The Metro, meanwhile, leads on the news that Stefano Brizzi, the man who murdered a police officer before trying to dissolve his body in an acid-filled bath, has been found dead in prison. FT reporting that French bonds have hit an 18-month low. Market fears surrounding the scandal about Republican presidential candidate François Fillon boosting the popularity of Marine Le Pen. The Times going with a report from Amnesty International, which has accused the Syrian regime of torture and extrajudicial killings. Daily Mail reports that a UK foreign aid scheme could be used to care for elderly people in China. The Express says a revolutionary new technique could be a breakthrough in cancer treatment. The Sun reports on David Beckham's birthday message to the Queen, labelling the former England captain Golden Cruels. And the Star says celebrity Big Brother winner Colleen Nolan was taken to hospital after a suspected heart attack. So Andrew Pearce, Kevin Maguire are here, and I know you want to start with the goings-on in Parliament today.
Hurrah! The Speaker, Bercow, has taken it upon himself. He's pulled himself up to his full 5 foot 3.5 inches to do a bit of grandstanding, like the pompous pipsqueak that he is, to say he doesn't think that Donald Trump should address Parliament. He's been invited to, as you know, as part of a state visit. That is often one of the honours for more senior presidential visits. You'd think this was Bercow moralising or taking a principled stance here, wouldn't you? But actually, this is just what he's always doing, trying to embarrass the Conservative government because he hates the Tories, even though he once was a Tory. Because if he was so concerned about Trump, how comes he sat there quietly and happily when the Chinese president, who runs one of the most authoritarian regimes in the world, spoke to Parliament? And he was also content for the Emir of Kuwait, likewise. Let me just tell you about Kuwait. They have no law in Kuwait to outlaw marital rape in a marriage. They have no law against domestic violence against women. It's illegal to be gay in Kuwait, but that was fine too, because there was no opportunity there to embarrass the Conservatives. And that's all this little pipsqueak is about, is embarrassing the Tories because he hates them. And you know what? They hate him.
And in fact,
because only 3 of them voted for him in the first place.
17 heads of state have addressed both Houses of Parliament since he came in June 2009.
And he never objected to any of them, a lot of whom have got a much worse... Donald Trump, that you say is a sexist and a racist, Kevin.
Well, he is.
He's the President of the United States, the most powerful man on the planet.
Okay, so has he at least preempted the conversation he's supposed to have with the Speaker in the Lords, for example, and the Lord Fowler and the Lord Chamberlain?
Yeah, you can be as personally rude and as
not being rude at all, being very
objective, like
about him. Objective. He's a prat.
And you were, but something like a quarter of MPs had signed a motion asking for Trump not to address Parliament. And he got up, and it was magnificent. And he quite rightly said, after he was asked by an MP, that it is a right you have to earn. It's not automatic. The fact is, if you come on a state visit, most leaders don't address both houses of Parliament. It was an obscenely early offer by Theresa May to Trump, using the Queen, who'll have to put him up and take him for a carriage ride and maybe let him play golf in Balmoral or whatever else he does.
His own golf
but
course.
you do not automatically get to speak.
So why didn't he object to the man from Kuwait?
I'd object to many of those.
Well, why didn't he? If he's got such a high moral standing.
But the fact is,
politically motivated.
The fact is, you judge your friends by a higher standard. And America has gone backwards politically with Trump as leader. And that's why there are so many protests. There are women marching against him in the States and in Britain and in Europe. The racist travel ban is absolutely obscene. Even the government began to attack it in the end. And look, this privilege to address MPs and peers isn't in the gift of the Queen or the Prime Minister, but the Speaker is one of the key players to decide.
Yeah, but it's amazing.
He's done the right thing.
So why did he not apply the same high moral standard to the Chinese president, Kevin, where people are killed and shot and it's not very easy to be judged? Why didn't he apply that rule? Why not? Why not?
I think that's a fair criticism.
Because he had no opportunity to embarrass the Tories. This is all about embarrassing. Yes, it is. It's obvious. Look, because he's intervened here, because he's grandstanding. It'll make him famous all around the world, because he's jumping on the bandwagon. The Chinese president has an appalling record on human rights. So does the Emir of Kuwait, and he happily stood there, was photographed with them,
to be fair, you've got the history with him, haven't you? To be fair,
because he's banned from Speaker's house for attacking his wife time after time in the most abusive way.
No, I was told I was banned from Speaker's house for being gratuitously offensive about Sally in the Ali Burko. So I say, what's gratuitously offensive about saying the Speaker's wife is an idiot?
No, but you're not. You're impugning her morality and so on, and it is appalling.
I've never known a Speaker's wife before draped semi-naked in just a towel in the shadow of the Big Ben. That was a great moment for the office of Speaker.
But that has no impact on whether her husband is good at his job.
I'm afraid.
Because it's brought the office of Speaker into disrepute again and again, just as this gesture is bringing the office of Speaker into disrepute, because he's playing party politics at the expense of the ruling government, because he hates the Tories, because they did everything they could to stop him becoming Speaker. And I hope they do everything they can to get rid of him, because he's an embarrassment.
You've fallen from your moral molehill into the gutter.
While we're talking about states that commit murder against their own people, The Times has an Amnesty International report about President Assad's regime, saying that up to 13,000 may have been hung in one jail, Sednaya military prison.
Absolutely, from Amnesty International. The Guardian also have it on the front. The estimate is based partly other prisoners talking about disappearances, and people would, they'd almost count the slippers, the footwear that was were left, and see so many pairs were remaining.
But very difficult to estimate. I mean,
absolutely, which they concede.
Right.
But we know it's a very brutal regime. And Assad has killed more than anybody else in the civil war. His forces have killed more than the Islamic State, who we quite rightly attack because medieval beheaders and their terrible ways. But Assad has got most blood on his hands, and yet, as Boris Johnson in the Times acknowledged this, has said, you've got to be realistic. He is there. You've got to do a deal with him, and it's morally repugnant. But there is no way forward in Syria without involving Assad, at least for a period.
We'll do business with him, and the British government will do business with him, as will the American government, and it's real politics.
Yeah, maybe Theresa May can give a stay visit.
Well, presumably Burko would let him in.
Yeah.
But there is a question, isn't there, whether a report like this, and they say between 5,000 and up to 13,000 they think may have been hung, whether that actually forces people to rethink again, whether they can actually, as Boris Johnson quoted here, be realistic about the way the landscape has changed.
I'm afraid it will make no difference whatsoever. They're going to have to do business with him. And David Cameron was the one who said that he can't be part of any future plans. As ever with David Cameron, he got it wrong.
Well, the Civil War started because his forces opened fire on peaceful protesters.
This is a man who used chemical weapons on his people, so he wouldn't hesitate to hang people, some of whom had a trial lasting 1 minute.
But I think Cameron was wrong at the time to say he had to go. I'm afraid you've got to give your opponent a way out, however difficult and unpleasant and uncomfortable that is.
Yeah. Nigel Farage in the papers, or at least his love life seems to be.
What a complicated web we weave. So this is Nigel Farage's wife on the left, Kirsten, with her hockey stick. What's she doing with that hockey stick?
Probably going to clout him.
Yes, you do wonder, don't you? I've just noticed.
No court would convict.
She's leaving the family marital home, and there's been speculation about the state of Farage for some time. She's put a statement out saying, we've been living apart for some time, and that's amicable. He's sharing a house in central London, smart part of London, and there's the woman he's sharing it with, a French politician, one whose own political organisation is under investigation for allegedly not
just
doing the right thing with their
helping her out, though,
expenses.
isn't that what's said?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Helping out an old friend, but his German wife, his French friend. For somebody who wants to leave the European Union, he certainly likes the women. £4 million house in central London. He's part of the Brexit elite.
Can I
he
just
wasn't entirely straight in the middle on Sunday, which revealed yesterday. It'll have no electoral impact.
You can
and
loathe
it's probably better for his wife.
You can
that it's out in the
you
open.
can loathe the EU. It doesn't mean you don't like European people.
And women, in particular, in his
Still
case.
to come.
I
Still
like
to
lots
come.
of European people.
The watch
None of
that
them like
tells
you.
you when you're getting boring.
Well, Liz has told him already. The alarm's going.
Well, welcome back to the press preview, taking a look through the newspapers, joined by Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Let's go to the FT, shall we? The latest, Andrew, the latest election to potentially shock people. Who knows?
For the French.
No, in France. And François Fillon, who was very much the front runner, being knackered really by allegations of sleaze, including €900,000 paid to his wife and 2 children, and he's apologising for
In return
it.
for apparently working for him.
For working very hard.
Say that on his
legal
behalf.
advice from the kids when they weren't qualified. His wife, who knows what she did, but nevertheless, because it's going to boost the chances of. The Le Pen, the fascistic National Front leader, French bonds are falling for 18 months. But he should pull out. He's a dead duck here.
It does
Macron
feel like
and the centrist economist might have a better chance.
The trouble is that they
socialists.
split the vote, and then Marine Le Pen comes in on the other side. And if she came through, that is the death of the EU, because she would take France out immediately, as quickly as she could.
Because it's a 2-ballot system and there's a final runoff between the first and second. It means she's probably going to struggle to win. She might get in the second round like her father did in 2002, because she is a hereditary fascist in that sense. But her constituency probably isn't great enough, mercifully.
And certainly Macron and Le Pen were out campaigning with fury over the weekend, making hay while they cat. But the point being now, given the repositioning of politics that we've seen with the Brexit vote and the Trump vote, is she still a fascist in people's minds? Is it starting to seem realistic for her?
Sometimes have Neo in front of it.
Yeah, well, she says she is Trump and Brexit. She says she's Trump and Brexit rolled into one. She is the anti-establishment, and she is anti-establishment, and she will have a huge appeal to white working-class French voters who think immigrants have taken their jobs and think that the establishment's not there for them, which is how Donald Trump won in the United States.
And what would it mean for the EU?
She hates it. She wants out. She
wants a referendum.
Straight out. Be a referendum immediately.
I think 144 policies is out of the euro, and then a referendum on coming out. But I think.
And that would be seismic if France came out. Because they are a founding part of the EU.
She's an authoritarian nationalist with a nasty, poisonous racism. So I think we can call her a fascist. Yeah.
OK, let's move on, shall we, to the Daily Mail, the website that rakes off, in the Mail's words, £20 million a year.
Let Kevin talk about this because it's in my book, but it's a fantastic story, this.
It is.
Investigations team.
I've used Just Giving many times to donate to people online. But they take just over 6% of what you donate. They say it's 5% to cover costs of the technology, which I can understand, although the boss seems to be on £200,000. The Mail works out it's just over 6% once you look at what happens with gifting. I had no idea. Now, it might be somewhere on the website. I had no idea if I gave 50 quid, 100 quid, whatever, just over 6% is taken. I don't think most people knew. I thought something would go. I thought it'd be about 1%.
I know, but it just seems too high, too much.
Yep.
And look, the Mail have quite rightly highlighted. Remember Stephen Sutton, that very diagnosed with terminal bowel cancer. We think Just Giving took £100,000. I didn't want them to do that, and people wouldn't want them to do that. And they say they take a lower percentage if it's a popular charity. Why not waive the charge? You know, why not be a bit more
Well, there
public
are
spirited
admin
about it?
costs to running
Of
these
course.
sites, so that they have to take some money.
But the chief exec is earning £200,000 a year, Anna. That's a lot of money. And when charity chief executives take that sort of salary out of the charity, they get a lot of criticism.
Doesn't sound much of a charity, actually.
Right. They're taking out fat cat salaries.
To the front of the Metro, the cannibal killer jail suicide, the headline there.
Yeah, Stefano Brizzi. This was the terrible case. The police officer he killed tried to get rid of his body in a bath. Now I'm not gonna shed any tears for this man, but there is a serious problem of suicides.
There is.
I think it's 107 suicides in the past year in English and Welsh prisons. Yeah, so like double what it was 5 or 6 years ago. Far fewer staff. We know, I'm afraid, your Tory coalition got rid of far too many prison officers in that austerity drive. And this shouldn't be happening because, yes, he's a murderer, but many other people who are taking their lives are not in for murder, lesser offences. A lot of them have other issues and problems, and it's kind of it's a stain on a civilised society.
2 minutes, 2 stories down the bottom. The watch that tells boring people when it's time to
already,
shut
Kevin
up.
Maguire doesn't need one because everybody knows how boring he is. But this apparently does tell you it's all to do with your blood pressure, your heart rate, your skin temperature. They've created a gadget that's worn like a wristwatch, and I think we should make a presentation to Kevin Maguire so he can wear it at all times, so he knows when he's boring people to death. And you've been boring me all night,
So
Maguire.
why are they taking your blood pressure and your skin temperature,
when
not the people who are?
Yeah, so it's telling
right.
when somebody's bored.
So when you're boring yourself.
Yeah.
No,
We've got the watch, so when he's boring me,
Yeah.
which is now.
If I was wearing the watch, it would sort of rumble when he's bored me.
He's really
so it'd be
explaining it in a
permanently
really
rumbling.
boring way as
so
well,
it's
isn't
telling
it?
you you're bored, time to move on. It's
Kevin.
kind of
Okay.
prompting you.
Right. Okay. I'm moving on.
Do you know what,
I'm
Anna?
quite interested,
All you need, though, Anna, is a good old-fashioned.
Okay.
You're boring.
There we go. Next story.
I think
We've
you need a
moved. We've moved
taser,
on.
really, don't you?
Up the top there.
Kevin
gun
wants to pay
salutes.
tribute to our magnificent monarch because he's such a devotee of the royal family. Her Sapphire Jubilee, the
65
first British
years.
monarch to get to 65 years. I think it's a terrific achievement. And, of course, her father, George VI, gave her many sapphires at key birthdays and landmarks, her 21st when she got married. And it's terrific. Kevin's complaining because he said the sound of the cannon fire in Hyde Park disturbed him today.
And it did. And look at all that pollution. But she's a great advert for privilege, best medical care money can buy, and never having to apply for a job in the public sector.
And the best possible advert for Great Britain PLC, and long may she reign over, because she brings in billions.
I'm sure she's a very nice lady, and let's just pension her off. There we are.
And every milestone from here is, of course, historic, isn't it?
It is indeed.
There we
Long
go.
may she reign
On
over.
that note.
I wanted to get to 100.
On that note,
Will
good
she
night.
send herself a telegram?
I don't know. I can't
thought.
answer any of those questions.
Do
I need to get
we
to the weather.
care, really?
I
Just
Good
let-
night.
Just
I
let,
do.
you know,
Good night.
her
Thank you.
boring watch is rumbling.